Fabrizio Romano subsequently tweeted, Liverpool offered James Milner a 1-year contract extension. Talks now underway as Klopp wants Milner to be part of the team also next season. Talks will continue in the coming days, weeks. It's up to Milner now. Like, my original thinking on this is that, well, if you're going to convince Milner to stay for another year, you buy Carvalho in, but you might not have the games for him, so you keep him out on loan.
Yeah, possibly, but Carvalho plays a line higher than Milner anyway, so I don't think they're mutually exclusive, those two. And you're looking probably Origi is going to leave, almost certainly. It's hard to see Minamino sticking around unless he's willing to, become Origi for a couple of seasons and accept
whatever
minimal minutes. The Milner situation is interesting. I mean, Jürgen was asked directly about that, obviously before the game last Sunday. I can't remember who they played last Sunday. Who did Liverpool? Burnley.
I know, God. I said we all were immediately going to wipe that game from our memories and just remember that Liverpool won and not how the win was achieved.
Yeah,
and well done, good job.
How cold it was as well, and how long I was sat in that cricket club waiting for the traffic to die down. We won't go there. But
maybe not again.
Yeah. But Klopp was asked about Milner, and he said he'll definitely play. He's not going to retire, which I'm not surprised one bit. But as far as I'm aware, and certainly when that tweet was sent, and earlier this week, Liverpool haven't made an offer to James Milner. Jürgen Klopp's message was more, I want James Milner to stay. I would like the club to make an offer. And even if the club does make an offer, there's still James Milner's wishes to consider. I mean, whatever you think of him, if you know his character and you know what type of person he is, there's never a game where James Milner thinks, do you know what, I shouldn't be starting for Liverpool. It doesn't matter how old he is, he knows how he trains, he knows how he feels, he knows what he believes he can give. So James Milner still in his head is, well, why would I accept less than what I believe I'm worth in terms of playing time? So it's not by no means straightforward that Liverpool just put an offer on and Milner says, oh, brilliant, another year, great.
Mm-hmm.
I think he'll have options. I think he'll want to consider it. But as far as I know from people around the player and the club, there's been no offer, formal offer. I think Milner was pleasantly surprised to hear Klopp's comments because I think he got his head around the fact that it's not coming. I mean, and he has got quite close to the time, really. I mean, he's out of contract in 4 months. So I think he was pleasantly surprised to hear that the manager speak openly about his situation, which he doesn't always do, obviously. Mm-hmm. And we'll see what comes with it. But I don't think there's been an offer yet, or there certainly hadn't been earlier this week.
Yeah, and that's that's interesting. It sounds like a bit of speculation on the part of the few journalists.
He might just know more than me.
Yeah.
It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Put it that way. But yeah.
Can you understand the stance there? Particularly of Klopp first and foremost, because I think there's a few people who look at that and think it would represent. I don't know whether it's. I don't think if I'm being disrespectful, but it's
sentimental.
How people, sentimental reasons, or it's a stagnation thing. If you're not refreshing the squad, if you're keeping 36-year-old midfielders who have clearly gone past their peak usefulness for the club, then that doesn't necessarily seem like a club that's moving in the right direction.
But I think there's a few things at play. I think one is I think Liverpool underestimated how important players can be, and I think Adam Lallana is a big example of that. I think Liverpool underestimated. I think Liverpool wanted to do the right thing by Adam Lallana and sort of said, "Look, you thanks for everything. You go and get your games elsewhere." And I think very quickly they were like, "Oh, we don't have miss him." You look, he left, Lovren left, Gini Wijnaldum left, and never mind the players, but their characters around the training ground and the dressing room that instill a certain level of relentlessness and professionalism and dedication, and the manager enjoys talking to, and those kind of things, and sounding boards, and Milner obviously part of the captaincy group, big part of the captaincy group. So they've got some young players coming through. They've got Harvey Elliott there, who I know looks up to Milner massively. Kay Gordon, I'm sure it'll be the same. Tyler Morton certainly does in that instant. He's a very popular figure. And he gets games, I mean, we talked before we went on air. 800 game last season. Yeah. Last night, sorry. Yeah. He's averaging 40 games over the last 20 years in his career. And for all it, okay, some of them are off the bench, or he come on for a couple of minutes last night. He's still there, and we always write him off. And we always say, "Oh, Milner." He's always on the bench if he's not starting. He starts games plenty. He started Chelsea, I think, this season. I think he started Tottenham as well. So he's, as much as you say, well, he's past his best and he's this and that, he's still more than useful to have in the squad. And I think there's a wariness of Jurgen, more so than Liverpool, I would suggest, of just waving that off and saying thanks for that, and 2 months into next season being like, do you know we missed this week? We missed Milner in that game when we only needed him for 15 minutes, but we didn't half miss him.
And there's a lot of things as well that we don't quite know, because we'll never know. I'm being privy to Liverpool's long-term, or short, medium and long-term thinking in terms of the squad rebuild, of who is going to move on, and you don't want to run that risk of moving on too many influential characters in too short a space of time. Yeah. So, we honestly don't know who's on Liverpool's shortlist to who you would accept offers for. There's those we would suspect, and I don't think Origi ties into this conversation necessarily, and there's a couple of other lads who fall in that regard. I think you could trim without severely hurting the squad dynamics. But if you lose from a couple of big characters, you don't want to end up. They're all winners now, but I think there's also levels within that, isn't there? And levels of discipline and levels of just traditionalism. I just think
you still think of. You just look how the young players speak about James Milner, and you look at whenever they come in. And you, like Tyler Morton, an example, you see his first interview after he's played, and you say, "Oh, what was it like coming into the squad?" And he says, "Oh, who helped you?" It's always Jordan, Milner. It was always Lallana in the past. I mean, I remember Nico Williams saying that Lallana was just phenomenal with the young players. Like a uncle type figure. I think Milner's more of a grumpy uncle than anything. But you'd feel a lack of his presence if he wasn't there. But it would take some getting used to.
The League Cup final is nearly upon us. We're excited, you're excited, and we've got some incredible content upcoming on our streaming service, Redmen Plus. We've got an exclusive in conversation with the League Cup 2012 man of the match, Stuart Downing, talking through his memories of that day. We've got an incredible silverware stories featuring the likes of Sander Westerveld, Emil Heskey, Darren Pearce of Birmingham, amongst others, looking back at that 2001 League Cup victory, as well as an incredible podcast series with the men who lived and covered each and every one of Liverpool's record-breaking 8 League Cups so far. This is how you get excited for the League Cup. This is how you build up to a final, and it's only available on Redmen Plus. www.theredmentv.com. Get yourself signed up and get this content. It's incredible.
But I just think that's an interesting point on the Milner stuff that gets overlooked a little bit. Is they're all winners, and they've all got the right attitude. They're all hard workers. They all give their all. But there's different personality types within that, and you need to have the right blend. Because, and I actually thought this about like the captaincy in general, is that a lot of people would go, just give it to Virgil, give the captaincy to Virgil van Dijk. But Virgil van Dijk is almost, in my head, is almost too good a footballer to be captain at times, because it's the Gerrard trap, where you're the best player on the pitch, and sometimes you're actually not the supportive guy. You're just more annoyed that everyone else isn't as good as you at times, instead of being the guy who
you need all those hands. You need Jordan kicking off because you've slapped him on the back of the head, that anger sort of issue. But I think you also need Robertson, who's part of it now, in that sort of breaking the ice a little bit and cracking a joke with a new signing. You need, obviously, Milner. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. You were there for the game, when you the debut, the Cardiff game. I think you were there for when Elliott scored. But you see Milner first to Elliott. Come on, I know how hard you've worked. I know for a fact that would have meant the world to Harvey Elliott. I know speaking to Curtis Jones, that if James Milner says to him, "Good ball, mate," like it's like he's had a blessing from the Pope. It's like, it's that kind of thing. That's what it means to these players. You need players like that, but you also need the blend, as you say. You need Virgil, who just puts you at ease because he's in control of the situation. You need Jordan Henderson who's shouting at the ref. You need Trent who just, is technically perfect. So you need all of those facets to it. I think the bottom line is it comes down to the manager wants him to stay. I think the manager tends to get what he wants. I think if Jurgen said, look, I want James Milner to stay, and Liverpool said no over $5,000 a week or whatever, I don't think that happens. Yeah. But the bottom line is, what does James Milner want? Does he want to live that life, carry on? I think he might, but it's not a guarantee.
Well, yeah, to that point, though, we talk about this a bit, about like the personalities on the coaching staff. There's so many people who are so happy and enthusiastic around Liverpool. You don't want too many Milners, but you do need one. You need someone for whom the bar is so high, and that you feel as though if you're not giving your absolute all, you've fallen below that, and you'll never win. It's like someone whose affection you can never win. And I keep making the Ronnie Moran comparison. There is that the no big heads policy, and James Milner's not the guy who stands for that, whereas everyone else is quite nice, and they might rib, but Milner just be like, no, not having that.
Yeah, of course, and also there is something to be said for someone like that you want their post-playing career to be Liverpool.
Yes.
So he's had 800 games. He's played more games for Liverpool than anyone else, which I don't know why it surprises me when I hear that, because of course he has. He's been here 7 years, but it still feels a little bit like James Milner. I still think of James Milner as Leeds and Aston Villa and Manchester City, but he's Liverpool. So
sorry, just to clarify that, he's played more games for Liverpool in his career, the mass majority. Not that he's played more games for Liverpool than anyone in the Liverpool squad.
Sorry, he's played more games for Liverpool than he has for any other club. So you want him sort of. You don't know what he's going to do. I know he's got other interests outside of football, and that it may well be one that he just cuts his ties with it. I know one of his heroes was David Batty, who I think he's known as no one knows where he lives, even, that kind of thing. He just, after football, that was it. I don't know if Milner will do that, but I think you want to be the ones who, if he is going to do something in football, you want him to be doing it under the Liverpool badge. So it maybe does stand to reason to keep him around and make sure that you're his last club, if you like.
Well, the sort of only really lingering criticism of the idea of signing him down that I've seen, and what I've been speaking online with people about this, is this notion of what his wages are going to be, and what does that mean in terms of Liverpool's wage structure. And that is the dangerous game, and I think this is why Gini Wijnaldum doesn't get a new deal, is because you don't want to have a guy on top level wages who doesn't earn.
You're right, but at the same time, this would be a 1 year deal or a 2 year, 1 year with an option probably of another year, or a rolling contract of 1 year. He'd be heavily incentivised, I would imagine. The way Liverpool work is pretty clear. It's not going to be, right, you'll get a 50% pay rise in another 2 years, 3 years. He got a very good contract in 2019. Now, if you ask me, he justified it. People, I remember that. I might be wrong here, but I'm sure it was the day after the general election that Milner got his contract in December 2019. I remember the reaction from fans was, Liverpool, trying to rescue the nation's mood. I think Klopp signed his around the same time. And I think a lot of people at the time said, 3 year deal for James Milner, or 2.5 year deal for James Milner. He's justified it. He's playing still at the high level. He's still coming in, playing right back against Luis Diaz and Wilfried Zaha. Liverpool are winning games. He's coming off the bench in Champions League games in the San Siro. He's starting holding midfield against Tottenham when everyone else was down with COVID and injuries and that kind of thing. So that, if you're gonna doubt James Milner, just be careful, I would suggest, because he's 36, but there are 36-year-olds and 36. I'm 37. James Milner is, James Milner is not 1 year younger than me. Put it that way, in terms of his physical capacity.
Just looking at what he's doing on the pitch, and the idea is you're getting a lot. There's a diminishing returns from him, and that is a little bit of natural fade in what he's able to do and do on the pitch and what have you. But also other lads coming up, and it's interesting that up until the weekend, the weekend or even this week, he'd had more minutes on the pitch than Naby Keita this season. It's only the last two performances for Keita that have actually taken him above Milner, more minutes in all comps. And the test there is of the other players who play in midfield for Liverpool. Harvey Elliott's only played 315 so far, and Tyler Morton, we might not see a lot more of him this season, but that's 515. It's just that you'll see other lads will naturally step up to fill that. But you've got to get in above Milner. And my point is always in this: if you're not getting in ahead of James Milner, then why? What, you know what I mean? And that's not a criticism in any. That's more a criticism on the lads, not on Milner.
Of course, you don't want a situation where, you know, someone like Naby Keita or Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain or Curtis Jones, they're there because there's no one else there. So you have to play them, you have to stick with them. They can't. One of the successes of Liverpool's season or Liverpool's last few years has been that when they need players, generally, whether it's Xherdan Shaqiri or Divock Origi or Nat Phillips, Reece Williams, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Jota, whoever, they've been able to do it. But those players at the same time, the majority of those, you haven't been able to bank on them. So you've needed the less exciting players. So you needed Wijnaldum, you needed Henderson, you needed Milner to do the donkey work, but the sort of the yards where, you know, it's the middle of the season and you're just sort of getting through games and you're just ticking over and you're getting into position. And then obviously when you come to key moments, then it's the players who maybe have had to wait for their chance or wait for a little bit of circumstance to get them into the side.
Well, Klopp talks a lot about this, isn't it? And again, we're not privy to all seeing every aspect of Liverpool, but he rates the lads who train hard as much as anything else. And you've got to train hard to make sure that it's like, you know, you're sharpening all the other good lads around 100%. It. And there is that degree that every minute that he plays on the pitch is often a minute, you know, in an ideal world, it's a minute that one of your really, really best lads is actually just allowing to put some more fuel and energy back into 100%. His tank when Milner's on the pitch.
Well, I remember speaking to Simon Mignolet about this, and definitely for I think he was here a year, wasn't he, before he left as Alisson's backup, wasn't he? Yeah. And he said the message that he got when Alisson signed, and I think he's not soft, Simon Mignolet. He was one of them. He saw Alisson sign, well, that's me, isn't it? You know, great. But the message that he trained with was, your job is to make sure that we have the best goalie in goal on Saturday, whether it's you or Alisson. If it's Alisson, your job is to make him the best. The same applies to anyone else. You know, as I say, I said it on last week's show, I think, if you're not training properly, you're damaging the team. You're not just damaging yourself. You're not just damaging your own prospects of getting into the team. You're actually damaging the team itself because, as I say, you might be giving Trent an easy time. You know, Trent thinks he's on top of the world because you're not putting it in, or, you know, the session's just not as sharp because you're not as focused, or you're giving the ball away, or you're not listening to the instruction. So the message for everyone, and Milner is front and centre of that culture, that idea that every second of every training session is part of the whole process to make Liverpool win as many games as possible.
Thank you so much for joining us for the free clip from Journo Insight this week. The full show is streaming right now on Redmen Plus. We had a good old deep dive into the links with Anthony from Ajax and whether Liverpool are currently scouting a short list of replacements or understudies for Mohamed Salah and who they might be. We also spoke about the latest on the Jota injury news. Did Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain go down with an injury as well in Inter Milan? And a whole lot more besides. That show each and every week, streaming exclusively in video and podcast form over on Redmen Plus. Get involved.
Hey guys, thanks for watching that show. We are on the countdown to the League Cup final. Liverpool playing Chelsea at the end of February. And if you want to get some amazing content around that game, we have got you covered.
We have got exclusive interviews and documentaries all available in video and podcast form. So you want to listen to us on the go, we have got you sorted.
Yeah, so do head on over to theredmentv.com, join up to Redmen Plus, and hopefully get yourselves in the mood for when Liverpool win the League Cup at Wembley.